stream from the Sepang International Circuit. As you can see, the cars out on track are the cars that are competing in one of the most unique competitions that we've seen come to Asia, the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup. This is round 2 and this is race 2. Each of the 3 rounds that are happening for the championship. 2 races in each of those rounds, Saturday and Sunday. So I'll just give you a quick recap of what happened a little bit later on yesterday. And there was some interesting moments, we should say, I suppose. A lot of decisions that came in from race control as to a couple of drive-through penalties. But it was great to see the 3 classes of car out on track. And that's what this championship really is all about. I'd like to thank you all, of course, for joining us on this live stream. We watched anywhere around the world. It's one of the wonders of the digital age. And of course, it gives us the opportunity to really look into things like this as well. Big race weekend up at Sepang International Circuit. There are plenty of those happening throughout the year, but it is always special when you have these prototype LMP3 cars out on track, because you don't really get to see them. Of course, LMP, Le Mans prototype cars are specifically made for that use, to compete in the Le Mans series, the various ones around the world. But of course, this is the first time that we're seeing a cup competition. Of course, has been the Asian Le Mans series, roughly from about 2015 onwards. They have been participating, and they are linked as well. But this is the most recent baby of the Automobile Club de l'Ouest, the ACO, one of the legendary names in motorsport. Been around for over 100 years and have really expanded based around that key iconic 24-hour Le Mans race, which of course is still going, but now there are plenty of other categories as well, and I'll go through exactly how it's all linked. The 3 categories of car in this tournament, or in this championship, are the LMP3s, the GT3s, and the GT Cups as well. And just see them getting together. Now, the weather, of course, we were talking about, if you were here with us yesterday, we were talking about the weather at Sepang and how it is world-renowned amongst any driver in any class as for being very variable and, of course, very significant when it hits as well. It doesn't just lightly rain around here. It's heavy, heavy rain. Now, yesterday's race was bright, blazing, beautiful sun, and it was perfect racing conditions for the 9 competitors. But today, it has to be said, even when I was driving into the circuit earlier on, I looked up and I saw some of the clouds and I thought to myself, well, this is going to be more of a challenge for sure for these drivers. Hasn't actually rained yet. As you can imagine, there are plenty of people who are watching the skies. There have been so many big races that have really come down their results to massive downpours or just really quick storms on not the entire track, but even if it's just parts of the track. 15 corners do stretch out, of course, and if just 1 or 2 of those corners gets a little bit waterlogged. The drainage, actually, on that note, at Sepang has been recently advanced. The entire circuit was pretty much closed for about 3 or 4 months. I think it's about a year back now, where they went through every corner and they essentially redesigned these corners and also added a better drainage factor. And since then, pretty much, whether it's 2 wheels or 4 wheels, pretty much everyone has said that the improvements have worked as well. Now, a track like that is going to serve a tournament like this, a championship like this, very well, because these are state-of-the-art cars, and we're all based on performance and balance. And that is the Lamborghini Gallardo, the Arrows Racing team. Michael Choi is in that today. So 2 rounds already. All 3 of the rounds this year will be raced at the Sepang International Circuit. Now, Michael Choi seems to be going very slowly, but I'm sure he's just getting a feel for exactly how much water is on the track. And you could see some there. So perhaps it was a little bit heavier during the morning, but as you can see, nobody's really got their umbrellas with them. Well, that is interesting because Now, a stopped Michael Choi means something completely different from a slowly moving Michael Choi. Now, he, of course, won the GT category in yesterday's race 1, and of course, by doing so, was also the only non-LMP3 car to actually make the top 3 as well. So, well, we'll get back to you on exactly what's happening with Michael Choi, but it didn't look too good. Meanwhile, everybody else is getting ready, and that's Mauricio de Jesus in the past Macau Racing Porsche 997 GT3. Be interesting to see the difference in times based on, 1, the humidity, of course, and 2, the amount of water that's actually out on track now. It's a 10-minute board, so they'll be starting their meticulous protocol procedures, each of the teams. And it will drop down from there to a 5-minute board and a 3-minute board, and then 1 minute before they go off on their warm-up lap, which will end in the rolling start. That is one of the parts of this wonderful championship. And as I said, it links to all the other. It's basically a pyramid of motorsport that the ACO have set up in Asia, and this is a key central cog to all of it. And it has been received very well. Now, as those cars get themselves ready, GT3, GT Cup, and of course the carbon monocoque cars as well, but I don't think we're going to be seeing the Ligier carbon monocoque because it was actually involved in an incident. Thankfully, the driver was okay yesterday, but I don't think the car recovered. Remember, there's a lot of power in these cars, and on top of that, they also work in ideal conditions. So in each of the classes have their different advantages, and of course, when compared or when racing against other classes, there are weaknesses as well. But the Porsche and the Lamborghini, well, the Porsche and the GT Cup series, they are very balanced indeed, and that really helps on a track like Sepang. So this race 2. Now, essentially this cup, as I said, is at the base of the Automobile Club de West racing pyramid that they have in Asia, and it's a stepping stone in prototype and GT racing. Cost effective and pretty easy to introduce into the driver community, multi-class racing. And it's a direct pathway to the World Championships for both prototype and GT competitors as well. And of course, the endurance racing as well. That's the Asian Le Mans series. That's happening later on this year in Malaysia, in October, if I'm right. Now, Douglas Koo and Dominic Ang made the step up from carbon monocoque to LMP3 in the Infinity Racing engineering team, which I believe was right there. And they've been, of course, doing very well over the first 2 rounds. A lot of journalists, motor sports journalists especially, were more updating as to what happened in round 1 because they didn't really know what line these teams were going to take, what kind of different strategies they were going to lay down in a 3-weekend tournament. But this second round and the first race from yesterday has definitely put a second point down the line, and we saw some pretty good reliability from all the teams. As I said, there was only that Ligier that did have the collision, but all the other LMP3s lived up to their technological design, I suppose you should say, and they did make their way to the front. But that just really highlights the great work from Michael Choi to get third in that Gallardo. There's a lot of defensive driving he was doing, I remember. So just under 10 minutes. Now, how it actually works is the 5-minute board. So everyone except the driver in the car and the mechanics has to leave the grid. and all work on the cars has to stop at that point as well. And then after that, at 3 minutes, it's just 2 mechanics per car, and then 1 minute it's the drivers and what happens next. Have they set up the car right? Is it going to work? Have the conditions been judged right? So many different details that you have to think about. But for the fans, it's great to see that, exactly what you're seeing here. You can see the cameras snapping this wonderfully designed LMP3 car. Now, I did start on that, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the Le Mans prototype class of car. It's actually been around since about 1995 in its various forms. That was the original one, but it's been, over the years, streamlined in different ways, and the LMP3 is, there's LMP1, 2, 3, and the LMP-C, which is the prototype challenge, but this is about 930 kilos. It's about 183 inches long, and it's got a Nissan V8 5-liter in there. Of course, very low off the ground, and with almost the entire chassis designed to create downforce. And at certain angles, if you look at it, you can actually see that the side skirtings on the car actually act as massive vents as well. So for the motorsports fans in Asia, it's great to see these cars on track, but it's also great to have them competing against some cars that we'll see on the street, BMW Z4s, and possibly not a 997, but Porsches definitely. And so really, the Ligier, the Ginetta, and the Adess 03, those are the 3 LMP3 class cars. And what we should see, based on the natural evolution of the race, is that they will graduate towards the front, and of course then we can start looking at the different classes and who's leading them and who ends up. It was very well spaced out in that respect. Shinyo Sano in the TKS ended up winning. Is his yellow car. And he was gifted a little bit, as David Rizzo, I remember, in the Win Motorsports. Ligier had to succumb to a drive-through penalty, and that was for actually causing a collision. So there has been, as I said, some headlines. If you want to find out the exact details as to the results and what happened, then get onto the website, which is www.asianlemansprintcup.com. Now, the 1 minute board is up, so why don't we add some more results to that website, as race 2 of round 2 is just about to get underway. So as I said, remember, a warm-up lap before a rolling start. The 3 rounds, the first was raced out on the 27th of May. Actually, I think it was in March. Yes, it was in March. And the next one, we're coming up later in the year. So there's the 2x2 formation. There'll be a rolling start for that. And of course, 1 pit stop allowed. And that is the key cog to all the team's strategies. It'll be between the 25th and the 40th minutes, 1 hour race. But that will have a varying amount of laps in it. It's 1 hour plus the leader. So essentially it's the leader that will dictate the pace. Unless, of course, as we saw yesterday, what happens to be now. Listen to that wonderful sound. Pure racing technology on the track at Sepang here. Now I can hear that just outside the wall as well, and trust me, it is a booming, booming sound. All the cars are ready to go. Safety car out front. With the safety car off, there they go. So that front row, David Rizzo in the blue and orange Win Motorsports. Shinyo Sano, the winner from yesterday's race 1 in the TKS, yellow TKS. Ollie Milroy in the BMW Z4 GT3. Jeffrey Lee in the Ades 03 behind him, Team AAI. Michael Choi's Lamborghini Gallardo should be there, but as we said, seems to have had a problem on the outlap, so he's not on that grid. Assuming that that problem was not fixed in time, and that's going to be tragic news for Michael Choi after a great performance yesterday. Well, I'm sure all these drivers are having a different warm-up lap from race 1. And we were talking about how quickly the weather can change at Sepang. Well, it was almost completely different conditions. So a little bit later on in the afternoon, earlier start on Sunday, but definitely a lot more moisture on that track. There's Nick Foster in the Porsche 997 GT3 from Team Z. And that was Douglas Koo in the Infinity Race Engineering Ades. Right at the back, just ahead of him, right there, past Macau Racing, Porsche 997 of Mauricio de Jesus. That is our grid. Now, I was saying that race 1 was a very balanced affair, and it was. And of course, if that happens with these 3 categories of car, these 3 classes of car, that means that they spread out into different areas of the lap. There was still a lot of battling going on. Of course, the NMP3s were moving off. At one point, they were in 3 different parts of the track, and the safety car actually had to pull them all together because, as I said, there were a couple of incidents. Race control were on the job, of course, and they sized up what was going on and served out 2 drive-through penalties. But for everybody else, it was a fast race, good weather, and that is hopefully what's going to happen here in race 2. So as they pull around one of the 2 long straights here at the Sepang International Circuit, there's the 4 red lights. And they're off. The Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup Round 2, Race 2. Good move out there from Jeffrey Lee. And in fact, a good start from all 3 of the NMP3s, but Ollie Milroy right up in there in second. Good move by him on the inside. He's got corners 2 and 3 now. This is all sector 1 of the track. Now, Ollie Milroy knows how to get the very best out of that BMW Z4. He was making headlines in round 1. Now let's just see if he can get his lines exactly right. Of course, with those cars compared to the NMP3s, it's really a question of getting your entire driving package right, both attacking the lines and defending your lines. But he's got the first part of the job done, which was a good start. Now, and that's exactly what I was talking about, watching his tail. That's a very, very fast car behind him. Is race 1 winner Shinyo Sano. He's going to be looking to come out of that slipstream, hopefully on one of these two long straights. It's actually one of the parts of Sepang that the drivers really do like, is having the back straight, and of course the big hairpin. Straight onto the front straight, designed by Hermann Tilke, and I think he put that in there as well, of course, with the grandstands in the middle. Now, this could be the moment. Found the slipstream, and he's come out of it. That's Jeffrey Lee's Ades again. Trying to go out the outside past Nick Foster, and he has just about managed, just cuts the line off. Now, we're going to have a look at the start again. They're in their 2x2 formation, but just look at the way that Jeffrey Lee pulls out there after his left. He's trying to come in on the outside, but all three of those LMP3 cars doing well in, with Ollie Milroy just defending that line, which he picked off the start, that has earned him this second place. So we have a GT car again between two LMP3 cars. That's an interesting situation for him, but it's also an interesting situation for them. And so far, he's doing exactly what he needs to do. Now, I did say, while these two battled it out, I was going to explain exactly how these this cup is linked to the rest of the Le Mans series. Well, the Asian Le Mans series, of course, it's already up, and the winner of this cup will get to compete in that series. And of course, from that series, you can actually make your step up to the 24-hour Le Mans itself. And these aren't easy steps, of course, but just having the opportunity in the path to do it for some of these Asian drivers, especially like Douglas Koo, Mike Choi, and Jeffrey Lee in the Ades, it is almost a dream come true. Now, we've been watching Shinyo Sano in the yellow Ginetta there, trying to find a line where he can open up that car and get past that red and white BMW Z4 of Ollie Milroy. Ollie Milroy has become notoriously hard to pass in the 3 races that we've seen now. There's a couple of wheels off there. I don't think it's any danger for him. A fast, sweeping part of the course. Sepang does have its clear overtaking points. And if you do everything right, you should be able to get enough momentum and pull to go through them. But there are also certain sections like the one they're on now, which is really about flooring it. Now I'd love to be able to go into the intricate dynamics of a BMW Z4 against an LMP3 car in terms of downforce and traction and going into corners. But to be honest, it's far more fascinating just to watch it. Shinyo is really just keeping his position, just looking for that opportunity wherever he can find it. He did see Ollie make a slight misjudgment just at the beginning of this lap, so maybe he's hoping that'll happen again. As you can see, there's less than a second between them, but 7 seconds between our leader, David Rizzo, there, and that fight between Ollie Milroy and Shinyo. So no troubles at all so far for Win Motorsport. And still no joy for Shinyo Sano. Now that is Infinity Racing's Douglas Koo. Currently in 6th. And the lowest placed LMP3 car Nick Foster's Porsche. And that design, of course, that Porsche design has been the centerpiece of Porsche's racing arm for many, many years now. But even as a road car, a lot of people have, or at least noticed exactly how balanced it is. You can add these racing technologies to that frame, which is exactly what they've done time and time again. So currently lapping around 218. The 997 GT Cups. The LMP3 is around 205. The exception, of course, of that BMW Z4 that's also lapping at 205. And David Rizzo has set the fastest lap, 201 right now. Now, so it's going to be interesting to see with the different conditions for the cars as to how fast they could be. Roughly the same right now. No, none of them have broken that 2-minute barrier. They're actually, in fact, slightly faster today. Well, Ollie Milroy is definitely doing the business here. Unfortunately, with his time completely occupied by defending that line against Shinyo Sano, I don't think he's going to be able to make any significant improvements towards the now 14-second gap that David Rizzo has built up at the front. So, Win Motorsport, I said it during race 1 as well, with their team protocols and the way they get their business done, like Infinity Racing, in fact, have managed to keep that reliability factor that you need throughout these race rounds. It's Jeffrey Lee there. Jeffrey Lee in 4th and 32 seconds behind David Rizzo. Which makes him roughly about 15 seconds back from that fight for 2nd and 3rd, which is still going on, I can't tell you. And it's still very fast as well. They both clocked, Shinyo Sanyo and Ollie Milroy, almost the exact same sector one time, 54.3 and 54.4. So that's going to be a good battle to watch. It looks like it's going to be lasting the entirety of the race. Now, all this could change, of course, with that one pit stop that is allowed, and I'll let you know when I know exactly when that pit window is going to be open. It'll be between the 25th and the 40th minute of the race, and in that time, it's your one roll of the dice to get back and either advance your car or repair your car and try and make that last burst towards the finish line. It's wonderful to watch these LMP3 cars grip corners like that. Unbelievable speed as well. As I said, you have a Nissan V8 5-litre engine that's essentially pushing 930 kilos. Obviously exact, yep, 930 kilos, and that is power to weight. Wow, it's an absolute rocket. No turbos as well, absolutely naturally aspirated, really. But as I said, the LMP technology, as we see here, has now been in development for about over 20 years. So with four different classes within that LMP category. So it is a fine product indeed. And it's great to see on Malaysian track. Well, I'm glad that's actually happened, as it has proved exactly what I was saying, that the sun has now come out and it's almost an entirely different race now. Of course, if it was heavier rain earlier and this change, this sudden change had happened, then it would be a far more significant concern for these teams. Thankfully, there wasn't much direct rain. Most of it, I think, was just from the morning, so shouldn't make that much of a difference. I wonder if we're going to see them open up their cars a bit. It is now lap 5, as dictated by David Rizzo. And the Ligier JSP3 is currently ruling the roost over the Ginetta and the Adesse. Now, Shinyo Sano has seen his opportunity and carefully picked it off. And there was no question at that point from Ollie Milroy. Maybe it was in fact just a case of Shinyo just waiting for that sun to come out, because I just felt that the track was a tiny bit drier in places. But hats off again to Ollie Milroy in this BMW Z4. He's the one that's really causing the problems for the top 3, and has been over these 2 race rounds. As I said, 2 races in each round, so this being the 4th race really of the season. And Win Motorsport have really been doing the job in terms of staying up front, setting the benchmarks. This championship is also a lot about the technology itself. It's not just about the points, it's not just about winning, and it's not just about elevating yourself in entrance into different classes. It is also about testing these cars out and making them better and faster every time that they do go out. So still the fastest lap, 2:01.850 from David Rizzo. He's absolutely flying around. Sector 2 time was 35.9, and he's also set the fastest Sector 1 time of 52.9. Just a little bit of explanation. The Sepang International Track is broken up into 3 sectors. The last sector is roughly about 34 seconds as well, so, and he's just done that in 33. So that was very fast for him. He's speeding up. He too would have seen the sun come out. As you would imagine, in a place like Malaysia, as soon as the sun comes out, things dry up pretty quickly. Also with a lot less humidity in the air, that's going to work the aerodynamics even better. Now Douglas Koo, Black Infinity Racing Engineering, has just been in 6th. He hasn't really made an attack at all, and he's obviously not in trouble. He looks fine, but of course he does have his pit window coming up soon. That could open in about 10 minutes, so if there is a problem with that car, then maybe they can get that sorted out, make a big boost at the end. But yes, I hate to use the word average, but in that LMP3 car, a 210 as opposed to the 202 that David Rizzo has set, and the general 206 that the Ginetta and the Adesse are running at, you'd have to say that is pretty average. So I'm sure Douglas himself wouldn't want to be running at that speed when you have the capability of going 8 seconds faster. That's Shinyo Sano. Great performance from him yesterday. And he was a very happy man as well. Now he's got past, as you can see, Ollie Milroy, and once he did, unfortunately, he is now facing a 24-second gap that he will have to try and make up. Could theoretically be done, mathematically could be done. Well, he's definitely going to be running like the wind, and of course he would have hoped that Ollie wouldn't have held him up for that long, and possibly it could have been a bit shorter. But these are some of the concerns, just some of them, that these drivers have to face. So Ollie Milroy, of course, in third, but heading up the GT category. That would be his official classification. Technically speaking, Michael Choi, a non-starter, as he failed on the outlap. And it's the other GT car. So this really will be more of a research and development experiment for Ollie Milroy in the BMW Z4. And what would be wonderful, of course, if he could also just keep his current third position and get on the podium. The podium you'd expect at these races, or you'd kind of predict to be the LMP3 prototypes. And so it is always a bit of a nice surprise when the other classes of car actually breaks in to the top three, as we saw yesterday with Michael Choi, and that's why it is surprising that Gallardo showed some problems today. If you've just joined us, wherever you are around, this is the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup Round 2, Race 2 from the Sepang International Circuit, about 85 kilometers outside of Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Weather is fluctuating, but is at least within stable boundaries for these three classes of cars, GT Cups, GTs and LMP3s, to run this not brand new championship. It has actually been around for 2 seasons now. This is the second season, but this is also the first season that includes GT Cup and GT cars. There's one of them right now. Obviously, due to the extra weight of a Porsche 997, it has to take a different line into these corners. There's going to be the roll, whereas these LMP3s, as you can see, are pretty flat to the ground, and they can just pick a spot and hit it. If anything, the problem would be your speed going into the corner. And I think everyone watching now, everybody here, would love to get their hands on an LMP3 on Sepang International for 10 laps. It would be quite an interesting experience. Of course, you'd have to go through a lot of paperwork, I'm suspecting. I mean, it is a very protected car like that. And that's why it is a bit of a treat for motorsports fans if they can come out and see things up close and personal. They are, of course, globally known, as they have been developed within that global framework the ACO has set up. But they haven't disappointed at all. Win Motorsport and David Rizzo still up front and just completed 10 laps. And so these drivers now will probably be a bit thankful that the weather has not unloaded on them. It's been threatening it, you could say. Definitely, you could say it was a threat level with the amount of cloud cover that we had. And I'm sure it's these guys, these team guys, that are going to have to do all the work should there be this sudden shift. And it is, you know, it's remarkable. It's actually noticeable at this track and where the way it's placed, the way it's been built. Everyone, even up to F1, has just said that it's a beautiful track, it's a very fast track, wonderful to drive, but if it turns on you, then there are a few drivers that have managed to master it in the dry and the wet. Michael Schumacher, of course, being one of the greatest names to do that. Now, we are still looking here at Ollie Milroy, who has settled into a good rhythm. 55, 37, 33 are his sector times, and he's been leveling out at those, which means he is still within distance of Shinyo's TKS. Might not see it on the screen. And he's only about 5 seconds off. And he's set the fastest lap for himself, which is just 1 second off. So a good example again of you've got a long bonnet car like the Z4. It has to take a completely different line into the corner, and on top of that, it has to then deal with the pull of G-force going out. So if you're going to try and overtake, it's going to be a tough call for sure. But right now, these cars are so nicely spaced out. They're all looking like they're going to consolidate their positions. And reliability might come into it as a factor, but as we saw yesterday, most of the cars were actually bang on in terms of setup. Such a good place to test up new variations to your car and new configurations. Well, right, that should be Douglas Koo in front. Yes, it's actually in front of Mr. De Jesus. They are on the same lap as well. I thought for a second he may have been lapping him, but no. That actually speaks more of Douglas Koo's Adesso 3 than Alessio De Jesus' Porsche 997, because it's an LMP3 car that is being chased by a GT Cup car. Interesting to see. Of course, the straight line speed, count on that. You saw that effect there, but perhaps he's having a couple of glitches maybe on some of his wheel setups and cornering, especially on the big corners. One of the reasons why Sepang is generally considered to be a nice solid track is because of its inclines, one. On top of that, of its various gradients of corners. You've got the full hairpin, you've got huge straights, you've got swooping corners, you've got chicane as well. That's a good example of that. A chicane actually declining. It pulls into the sweeping corner. And finally, David Rizzo is past Nick Foster. And exactly bang on 25 minutes, the pit window, I've just been told, is now open. So this is where things will get interesting. If anything is going to change, it's going to be from strategic placement of your pit stop within this window, because all the cars have to come in. Well, you don't have to come in, but most of the time they do, all of them, and how they have played it. Now, of course, ideally in this situation, you have David Rizzo has done the perfect Route 1 strategy, which is build up a 41-second lead over your second placed runner, and then go into the pits and get your pit done and go out, and everything's perfectly fine. Of course, that does rely on the team as well to make sure those lights flashing. For a second. It's just coming round now. So he's not going in this time. But he is past Douglas Koo. Or he should be past Douglas Koo. Now, as I said, Douglas is in fifth. David Rizzo in first. 41 seconds and a lap now between them. It's the commanding lead that the Win Motorsport team have. And you'd have to say that if they do well as we watch Douglas Koo come into the pits. Now, all the teams, I can tell you, are going to be extremely careful as they make these pit stops, because that was where, this area, exactly here, where the infringements were happening yesterday. There were a drive-through penalty for a red light, and the other one was actually a collision. One by one, they did come in. As you can see there, the drivers changing. Some of these teams, of course, have two drivers completely allowed, and this is the place that they do take over. They need to. It should be William Locke that gets in the car to take over from David Rizzo. Locke, the principal, team principal, and the driver at Win Motorsports. Effectively, it'd be the same as a player, manager, owner in football, and that gives him, of course, a lot of control on how that car is set up, and a lot of feedback areas as well as a driver to give back to his mechanics. In an environment like this, that can really help, having that central position where you can look out. We are just viewing Jeffrey Lee. He's had a very solid race so far. He's in fourth. About 1:33 off this man, David Rizzo, but has also put in a 2:07 as a fastest lap, which is quite respectable. Nothing has beaten that 2:02 yet from David Rizzo. He has since put in a 2:03. In fact, just as I've said that, he's actually beaten at 2:02.160 is now the fastest lap we've seen today. But again, taking each sector, David Rizzo, 53, 35, 33, those are the fastest times you can get on those sectors, and he's been hitting them every single lap, which is why he's so far ahead of the rest of the pack at the moment. But during this pit window, as I was saying, a lot of fluctuations can happen, a lot of variables can change, and of course the order of the race can change as well. So you really have to wait till after they're all out to see whose strategies work the best. But in the case of Win Motorsport, having a 41-second lead, well, that's ideal. Shinyo Sano here. Now, we didn't see him come in. Track for the LMP3s. Nice sweeping part of it. Look at that wonderful line that David Rizzo is taking. That's the line you need to hit if you are going to be putting in these sector times that he has been. And he really is running a clear, commanding, and confident race. Yes, it's down to this wonderful LMP3 car. Yes, it's also down to the driver as well, but let's not discount the wonderful team dynamic that Win Motorsport has, and that need, that hunger to win, which has been translated throughout all their processes, right to the checkered flag. Definitely one of the shining stars of the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup. Now that is Jeffrey Lee's team, AAI Ades. And as I outlined, every driver that has been into the pit so far has been on the very best behavior, making sure that every single one of those pit regulations is adhered to, and there are a lot of them. Now that's Shinyo coming into turn 14, and he's into the pits as expected. Now this is second place Shinyo in the TKS Ginetta. Of course, David Rizzo is already out. there was no change of driver for Win Motorsport by the looks of it. So the Ligier is the exact same setup and driver that started the race, had a great start to the race, and has been leading from the beginning. In fact, has had pretty much a faultless race. So it's really going to be up to these guys, TKS team, to get Shinyo back out as quickly as possible to see if he can. Well, roughly 32 minutes into the hour race now, so it could be a nice challenge for Shinyo to see exactly how much he can cut into this man's lead. And Ligier JS P3 is clinging to the corners and just hurtling down the straights. Makes it a lot easier when you can concentrate on your driving line and not have to amend it in any way to defend or attack from somebody else. That is David Rizzo back in the pits, or in the pits, I should say. Well, no, that is definitely his official pit stop. I was absolutely certain that we'd seen him flash into the pits earlier. Well, that makes this even more interesting. And that's 1 and 2. David Rizzo and Shinyo Sano in the pits, doing the pit window. Of course, David Rizzo has completed 16 laps, so they're not actually on equal terms. And Shinyo's on 15, which is why he was out. It's not one extra lap. So he is almost guaranteed to have his commanding lead back. But even with that, it looks like the team are done. In front of them, Rico de Jesus, past Macau Racing Porsche, and coming out the pits, Ollie Milroy's BMW Z4. Now Shinyo is out, but as I said, he is effectively a lap back, so still has to stick to that pit lane speed. I do believe it's 70 kilometers an hour. Don't quote me on that, it might change. But most of the classes now, once he gets out of this chicane, he can start seeing what he can do to cut into the lead set by that team, Win Motorsport and David Rizzo. Of course, it would greatly help Shinyo's cause if there was something in terms of reliability and engines that would affect William Lock's car. I've just been updated that William did in fact change drive, so David Rizzo has done his half of the race and handed his teammate almost a perfect plate. 1 lap lead and a car with no significant damage problems. That's working pretty much fine. So good teamwork again from William Lock and David Rizzo. So the team principal now in the car, and he's going to see out the rest of the race. And now we'll get a quick actually peek into Win Motorsport, which is quite good. This is their paddock. I don't know if we're going to get to go right behind there. I thought not. But that's where most of the press conferences and of course where the cars get their just pre-testing and any tweaks that need to be done. Anything major needs to be done, of course, overnight just before. Now, this is going to be interesting. It's just a case of William Lock lapping again. In this case, Jun San Chen, who's taken over at Team AAI in that Adesso 3. And Dominic Ang is now in the Infinity Racing LMP3 as well. So they're currently in 4th and 5th, about 3 minutes back. We can't see Dominic there. Graham Dowsett's now taken over in the Team NZ Porsche 997. Wong Kian Kwan in the other 997. And as we said earlier, if you're expecting to see Michael Choi, the GT class winner from race 1, well, he's unfortunately never got to complete a lap because something happened on his out lap right before the race, and we saw his car grind to a halt and was then pushed back as well. So if you want more updates on exactly what happened to Michael Choi, and of course all the news, views and results from the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup, not just this round and the other rounds, we have this wonderful website, www.asianlemanssprintcup.com, spelled exactly the way you can see it on that car. And that has previews and reviews and absolutely everything you need to know. Now I'm just looking at the sector times for Shinyo, seeing if he has in fact come out a little bit faster, and he has. 55 off sector 1. Actually the same sector 1 time, in fact faster than William Knox with Motorsport. Now of course you have to understand, with their massive lead, we're not going to be expecting Win Motorsport to go at say 98, 99% here. They're probably going to, for reliability's sake, pull it back down to about 95%, which does give that window, but those are good times from Shinyo. He's now completed that lap, 55.2, 37.2 and 33.8 seconds in the 3 sectors in that lap. Roughly 0.6 of a second faster than the leader, so I wonder if he'll get any closer. Ollie Milroy has been replaced, of course, by Chi Huang, who's now in the BMW Z4, and that's a 1 minute sector 1, 42.9 and 36.7 sector 3, and that really does highlight the difference in speed between the GT and the LMP3. And it's not just straight line speed either, it's a combination of all the time gained from being able to take a tighter line at much faster speeds. Now in the GT Cup we have Graham Dowsett. That is actually probably the closest of all 3 classes right now. Just about 18 seconds between the 2 cars. Wong Kian Kwan is the second GT Cup car, past Macau Racing, number 15. But just won that one GT car. Due to the absence of Michael Choi's Lamborghini Gallardo, that car is essentially topping the class, of course, but is also, more importantly, in 3rd spot in the overall classification. Which, again, for the 2nd consecutive race, would be a wonderful achievement to see one of those GT cars outwit and outperform the LMP3 car. The one in question here is Jun San Chen's Team AAI Ades 03 that is about 10 seconds behind the Z4 after pitting. So this is the last part of the race. And that GT class BMW Z4 has come out of that whole pit lane strategy and in a good position as well. So it could be some celebrations happening at Team AAI if they can hold that position. That is the car that is about to be lapped by William Lock, who's now on 18 laps. I'm just looking at their sector times again, and Shinyo Sanyo has again. It's not going to make a massive difference with the gap or the lead that the Ligier has built up, but he is, Shinyo Sano in the TKS, currently the fastest man on the track, and he's just eating away at the edges of that lead, you could say. It's about 0.5, it's about half a second quicker on all three sectors. You can see the kind of analysis that doesn't happen. And I did say it's not just about the results, it is about more of the technology from all these different classes as well, how they interact together on track, and of course how you develop them individually as a team. And the team that has come to the surface of both rounds so far this year has been Win Motorsport in that car. William Knox car. He's on his 19th lap now. And now he is speeding up a little bit more. So maybe he just took his foot off the pedal just to get used to getting into the drive. There is that driver changeover, so he has to kind of pick up from the momentum that David Rizzo set up. So perhaps he was just taking it easy, but now he's definitely building again. It's about 14 seconds, as I understand it, between, in fact, there's one lap now between each of the top three. So William Lock is on his 20th lap, Shinyo Sano is on his 19th, and Ji Huang is on, well, it's just passed on to 19 as well. 53 seconds behind. I can tell you that the shortest gap, about 50 seconds between each of these cars right now. The shortest gap is actually between Ji Huang in 4th and Dominic Ang's Ades in 5th, and that's about 14 seconds. So let's say this is effectively what happens. And if you look at the weather now as compared to the start of this race, which was about 40 minutes ago, absolutely different. The sun is now really drying up the corners. And as I said earlier, had there been rain earlier, heavier rain especially, then that would have been a lot of moisture drying at different rates at different places of the track, and that's the kind of environmental factor that will affect these cars. A lot of it obviously can be compensated by the driver himself. Now, Shinyo Sano is in the pits and has driven through the pits now. It's an interesting situation. I'll get you an update on exactly why Shinyo was in the pits again. Didn't stop, didn't get out, didn't have any work done on the car, so looked like it was possibly a penalty. But I'm not going to confirm that because I do actually have a readout in this wonderful commentary booth that gives us all the legislation that comes out of race control immediately, so of course everybody can know. And that monitor was flashing quite a lot during race 1, but has been very quiet in race 2. Everybody's been extremely well behaved, and the race has evolved and grown as was expected. And another good performance from Win Motorsport. Some of these teams have run different cars in the past. They've actually changed up. Team AAI was one of them. They were, before the LMP3, they were running now. They were running a McLaren 650 SGT3. not forget some of the other classes as well. That GT Cup class led currently by the defending champions, Team NZ, Graham Dowsett and Nick Foster. And they are leading the class here as well. Well, as I say that, I just look up and know that they're actually not. They've been passed during that pit in. They've come out and passed Macau Racing, which is the other GT Cup car, has managed to come out on top, which is almost a direct result of that pit strategy. So that's exactly what we were talking about. When you pit and how you pit, of course, it could change based on the actual situation of the race. There's always going to be a plan A and a plan B, and a plan C if they need it. But just staying on GT Cup for a while, Team NZ have done very, very well. Now, whether you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, once again, thanks for joining us on this live stream. One of the most exciting motorsports championships to not only come out of a legendary motorsporting environment, but also to be in Asia as well. A lot was expected of it, it delivered it, and now, based on the success and the growth of the ACO and their championships, the Le Mans series around the world, the Sprint Cup is expected to do exactly that. Now, as I said, the winners of this championship get to qualify for the Asian Le Mans series, slightly older, but another one of these growing ACO championships. And in that series, that already has an embedded entryway, an opportunity at least, to actually make it to that iconic 24-hour Le Mans race. I think the entry would be for next year, for 2018 as well. So for some of these drivers, Asian drivers or international drivers, regional drivers, that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and it's worth getting out on track and fighting for it. Talking of fights, let's just see if that is in fact. That would be, yes, Junsan Chen and Dominic Ang. And I think, yeah, they are in fact 3 seconds apart. So this might be Dominic Ang actually moving up into third spot. Shi Huang, meanwhile, has dropped out of the top three, so we're not going to have that GT fairy tale moment again, but we had it in race one anyway, so it was nice to see this weekend. It looks like the NMP3s are doing exactly what they were built to do, as all four of them are now in the top four positions. And as we get into lap 23 now, we'll just go through those positions. William Locke from Win Motorsport up front. Shinyo Sano from TKS in second. Dominic Ang from Infinity Racing in the Adesso 3 in third. Junsan Chen in the final LMP3, the other Adesso, the Team AAI one in fourth. Then we've got the GT class BMW Z4 from Shi Huang, the two GT Cup teams. Past Macau currently leading Team MZ. And that is the complete list, only 7. We lost the Carbon Monocoque, which is the other class, which should be here. The car, the Ligier Evo, was involved in a collision, sadly, in race 1, and was not able to be fixed in time. So that was a real heartbreaker for the team. But as we said, the important thing is that it was taken care of very well, and the driver was perfectly fine there as well. So you add that missing car to Michael Choi's stopped Lamborghini Gallardo in the outlap, and these are our last 7. And to their credit, they have done the job that is expected of them. Their sector times have been fast. And they've kept to the team strategy pretty well. Just look those top two again. And yes, William Lock is currently fastest man on the track. No, in fact, depending on Dominic Ang's final run in Sector 3, he might just be, and he is, in fact. So, of those LMP3s, in his third place, Dominic Ang, that is, just peaking on the performance. That's the leading GT Cup Porsche. And he also has a sizable lead over his rival, Team NZ's Graham Dowsett, some 54 seconds back. So a nice easy run in for Wong Kian Kwan in that past Macau Racing, and a good result for them as well. So we are into the last 10 minutes now of race 2, round 2 of the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup. And I think it's safe enough to say that these cars have been spared the heavy rains that do sometimes, well, taunt the Sepang International Circuit and any drivers and cars on it at the time. But they have had a lot of moisture to deal with just in the early part of the race. But not really much to trouble them. And that Z4 has put in another solid performance as well. Unfortunately, Chi Huang could not carry on from the wonderful work that Ollie Milroy did again. Ollie Milroy, of course, remember, went into the pits in third, so looking like something might be able to happen, but really that comes down to something not happening for the LMP3s. That is just for the overall finish, of course. That's not really what they were expecting. What they're expecting is to top the GT class, and that's exactly what they're doing. All he has to do, Ji Huang, is finish. So make sure of the reliability of that Z4. Keep it nice and tight into the corners. It looks like that's exactly what he's doing, keeping it nice and safe. William Lock, meanwhile, streaming ahead. That Ligier JSP3 has really done well. It has, of course, been a run-up towards the weekend. There are two races, one on Saturday and one on Sunday, but two practice sessions the preceding Friday, two qualifying sessions on Saturday morning as well. So a lot of logistics for the team to put together. You want to make sure you get your best performance out of it as well. So what they're really fighting for in all three classes is that free entry to the 2017/2018 Asian Le Mans Series. And I think that 24-hour race, usually in June, and it's all part of various initiatives and programs set up by the ACO. I think it's called Road to Le Mans, is one of the main ones. But it has been such a memorable race, and it has done so much for motorsports, not just in Europe, but around the world as well. And what you're seeing is, with this LMP3 car, is that technology stemming out across continents now. And it's great for the car in terms of testing out its ability. It's great for the fans, of course, and never get to see this level of technology. And it is great for the drivers as well. I'm sure a few of these drivers Dominic Ang, and as we said, Team AI made their switch from the McLaren to the Ades. They now get a new driving experience to work with and work around and try and build their results off. Now, this has been, I'm just going to stop to say, this has been an amazing 1 hour race, simply because we've had 3 completely different light conditions throughout. It was rainy at the start, then it went to bright, bright sunlight. That dried up the track, and now it looks like it's a little bit more overcast, but still, thankfully, no heavy rain. But this goes to show you. So William Lock coming up the back straight. Into turn 15, 5.54 kilometers. And as you can see from the sign, we're on the last lap now. So just one more. I'll have to say it, one more faultless lap from that Win Motorsport car, and it becomes history. And I think history is the right word to use with a championship like this, not just the history of the ACO, but the history of the LMP format car as well. And each of these results that these cars are racking up over the race rounds, well, they're becoming history as well. Now, I've just seen on my information from race control that there's some debris on the track at turn 3, the exit off the racing line. So there is still a few things that you have to look out for on this last lap. I wonder what debris that actually was. It could be a multitude of things, of course. But we haven't seen any collisions, so it's most probably not going to be anything too serious, but there's a lot of tire debris and other things that come off. So William Lock easily passed. Now coming into the second part of the course. He just posted a 39 flat sector 2, so he's into his final run-in now, and essentially starts with that corner just before the straight, back straight. And now he's going to round the final bend. What a performance from the entire Win Motorsport team. You just see the hands being clapped, and there is the checkered flag. William Lock in the Ligier JSP3, after 28 beautiful laps, has come out as the winner of race 2 in round 2 of the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup here at the Sepang International Circuit. Now that is not second place. Should be Shinyo Sanyo. And this is where we're going to have to get all the classes together. But a good, solid, untroubled performance from both drivers. David Rizzo essentially handed this car with a 41-second lead after just putting in some blistering laps. And he really made sure that nobody else was going to assault Win Motorsport in this second race. William Lock took it a little bit easier in his laps, but as I said, he had nothing to really trouble him. So it was more of a question of reliability more than anything else, and he managed to keep that in check as well. So this, of course, all down to all those mechanics and the big team plan as well, which has worked out very well for them. Of course, now Shinyo Sano won race won on the weekend. So it's TKS that came out victorious on Saturday. Win Motorsport have come out victorious on Sunday. Just doing his victorious lap. Now, we've seen here is that carts almost immediately stopped. Now pretty much everyone is finished now. And it's confirmed that Shinyo Sano has come in. Dominic Ang's Infinity Racing Ades has come in. Jun San Chen's team AAI Ades 03 has come in. The BMW Z4, both 997s, which is our complete starting grid. So good to see all of them finishing. Of course, once again, heartbreak for Michael Choi, a winner on Saturday, and unfortunately a DNF in the Arrows Lamborghini Gallardo right from the start. That was off the outlap, and I'm sure we'll be seeing that in the replays and the highlights in just a second. We'll have a quick look back at everything that happened as the cars come into Parc Fermé, ready for their technical inspections and reviews. While they all adhere to the rules on the outside, a whole load of people are going to make sure that they also adhere to the rules on the inside. And I have to talk a little bit louder now because they're just outside, and these cars are incredible to listen to. You can probably hear that actually picking up on the microphone, because I think anyone around here could probably hear that car. Well done again to William Lock. That is not just the driver of that car, that is the team principal and the man that really has been picking the direction of the team. But on top of that, he's also been pulling them together in a very efficient unit and getting these results, and that's what it's all about. Amongst the NMP3s, it was the Ligier, followed by the Ginetta, and then the two Adeses. But really a lap and a half between them, so plenty of room to work on. If you just look in just above William Lock there, that's the sky that everyone was keeping an eye on, which could have very easily led to heavy rain. And if it was heavy rain, that would have been different.
It was nice. Thank you, Driver Dave, for giving me a very, very nice gap. And then I just took the car and could, keep my pace. Keep it all along. Yeah. Wasn't pushing as hard as yesterday, because there was a lot of drama yesterday. But today we just need to bring the car home in a very safe and manageable manner. Yeah. And,
well, that's great to hear. That's pretty much exactly what
great to be
I
back
suspected.
on the podium again.
A few words there from William Lock, and he said exactly that it was a question of just keeping it nice and safe and making sure they got home safe in the car, which they did, and just keeping that reliability in check. So a very easy strategy to move to, but also not that easy, as there are a lot of components within it that are out of your control. Engine blows, for example, or tire problems. So there is still a little bit of hope when you do enter these strategies that everything's going to work out fine, and it did work out fine for both drivers. It has to be understood. This was not a one-man thing. David Rizzo there has a lot of the credit which he can take from setting up that wonderful 41-second lead in his first half. It was essentially half-half in terms of their racing duties. And he was, as William Lock also confirmed, the faster of the two drivers, but that wasn't Williams' aim. His aim was to make sure that all those good games that David put on track were maintained and consolidated. Hats off again to Shinyo Sano in the TKS, finishing second, of course, after the win on race one. That means he's had a very good, very fast, and very reliable weekend. And Dominic Ang in the Infinity Racing Ades also has had a good weekend. And I think we're going to have a little look back now at this race. So this was just at the pre-start, and this point, a lot of the race mechanics were looking to the sky to see exactly what was happening. There was rain overnight. There was moisture on the track. It was all very open at this point as to what the continuing race was going to be like. And as they finished their warm-up lap, the rolling start was just speed from all of them, but that was Jeffrey Lee in the 91 Team AAI, just off on the right there. And he had a very good line in, but look at what Ollie Milroy did by just cutting that line off and making sure that those two LMP3s could not get any ground on him. And he did that, to his credit, for a while as well. He did that for a good few laps. Beautiful driving from him, but in the end he was taken. But had a great battle with Shinyo Sano for that duration. Now, while this was happening, of course, David Rizzo was streaking ahead up front, and that really, there he is, and there was really nothing they could do about it because Shinyo and Ollie were locked in that battle. They couldn't really look to moving forward. They just didn't want to really concede any ground. Now, the GT Cups, the GT3 Cup, Porsche 997s had a very solid run out. Wong Kian Kwan came through in the end from Pass Macau Racing. And a little bit up and down from Infinity Racing. They were a little bit slow with Douglas Koo at the beginning, but post pit stop window, Dominic Ang turned up and has managed to pick up third spot. So they did more of a recovery, really. No reasons really given or seen as to why that ADES 03 for Infinity was moving at, to be honest, the GT Cup pace for the first half of the race. So of course with Michael Choi, as we said, we didn't get to see that, but his Lamborghini Gallardo stopping on the outlap, that meant that in the GT class, Chi Huang was essentially the only competitor, but you do have to still finish the race. You do still have to make sure that you cross the line, and he did that. So topping the group there. Probably the only losers, if you had to look at it in that fashion, would be Team NZ there. Of course, the defending champions and the team leaders in the GT3 Cup category. So to be pipped to the line by Pass Macau, well, that was probably unexpected, as that happened during and just after the pit window. So as we watch the cars get wheeled into their paddocks, that brings us to the close of what has been another fascinating Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup round, and of course race 2 as well. Thanks for joining us on this live stream. You can of course keep watching this live stream again. If you missed any part of it, then it will be housed on the Facebook page and all other social media for the Asian Le Mans Sprint Cup. And of course, look out for round 3, which will be later on in the year. My name is Jeevan Selvanathan, and thanks for joining us today.